Welcome to Blended Views, this month's collaborative Facebook Live between NBC 10, Equally Informed Philly, and Dos Puntos podcast. We bring us perspectives of Black and Brown communities and different issues impacting their communities. And with the school's funding trial moving closer to conclusion, today's topic will be on school funding in PA and how the experiences so far has experienced with the youth's perspectives. My guest is Thaddeus P. is the second, a member of the Education Committee in WACP and advocate for equal and funding in Pennsylvania schools. Unfortunately, he's not here right now because we're having some technical difficulties, but he will join us as soon as possible.
And I am Emma Restrepo from Dos Puntos, and I have two guests today. Both of them are Latinas, first generation in this country. Danielle Castañeda Angel, which is here on the screen, she's a senior at Upper Merion Area High School, and she's planning to a major in public health. She loves to dance, listening to music, eating, and being with her family and close friends. And also Jesenia Zavala Jimenez. She's not already here because she's also experienced some difficulties with that. They both are in Norristown High School, I think. But she's a senior at Norristown Area High School. She liked to major in interior design after his high school. She loves listening to music, drawing, and spending time with loved ones.
Thank you, Emma. So we're going to start off right now with Danielle because that's what we have on the screen for right now. So we'll start off with, because this is a very, with the trial, again, is coming to its conclusions. We just wanted to know, for our viewers, would like to know, like, how do you see the impact of the lack of funding in your day-to-day experience at school?
Well, a lack of funding. So my high school is actually getting knocked down and we're having a new one. But for the past, like, I guess 3 years now that I've been in the high school I am, it's definitely could have used some funding if we weren't as focused in building the new school due to the ACs breaking down, the bathroom stalls, not just because they're old, but other students' actions destroying like school property, and also just like more into first gen and Latinx and minorities, I guess, assistance, not just like kids that get into trouble. Our education though is pretty decently. I just think it's like the way it's taught and the building itself too.
Yeah, that makes a difference, right?
Yes.
Daniela, there are some things that probably can be fixed without money, and there are some things that certainly can fix with money. If if you imagine your school with more money, next generation, the generation that are coming, what will you see? What can be the big change with money?
With money in my school, I can definitely see a lot of more freedom, but also a lot more security, I'm assuming, just because there's going to be a lot given out. So there's going to be privileges and things taken away for sure. But with money, I think, well, at least I'm hoping that it will also give more students an opportunity to like have experiences out of school and be like an open door too, just because you'll have the money to afford those programs out of school. Or oh, look, it's Jesenia. Or okay.
Oops.
um and stuff like that. But I think money will mainly be part of the building and being able to afford, I guess, more luxury and more updated of an education system, but I don't really know how it's going to, um, like, what's the word? Benefit
Hmm.
other students, especially minorities in the POC community. Um, because I have noticed that there's a lot of favoritism sometimes. Um, but money can be a huge change. I honestly don't know what it would do at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it definitely calls for a lot of freedom for students
Hmm.
and a lot more luxury for sure.
What about arts and education, Daniele?
Arts,
How, yeah, if you imagine arts and education with more money,
um, definitely more supplies. I don't think
arts and sports, sorry,
yes.
arts and sports.
Sports. I can speak a lot on sports just because I was an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Um, definitely better uniforms. I can say that for sure. I think maybe um, give out the equipment. Just like I played field hockey, so field hockey sticks and balls and gear, like nice. Um, I forget goggles.
Okay.
Um, and I think also better fields. We had a terrible field hockey field to practice on, and I think if we were had the money and the space, we would have a nice grass field or turf field more than the one we have. And I think it would I would hope too, it would give more money to the female sports, not
Hmm.
just football and basketball, and possibly soccer too. But instead of just giving all the money to football teams and the basketball teams, probably having an equal share to the other sports that deserve it, and also include the girls' sports because there was a lot of differences the past year or two that I noticed, especially between football and soccer. And then as an arts, I think we'd have more options than what we already do, and we wouldn't be so concerned about like the amount that we have left. Um, I know
Hmm.
Yesenia was talking about the glazes and the clay in her school, how she saw the difference between Upper Marion and Norristown, and how she had to focus on how much she was using or to carefully use them, give or take, um, on them.
Oh, thank you. Yasina's here. Thank you. I know we had some technical difficulties. Thank you for working through it. We're still missing Thaddeus, but hopefully you can jump on too. So I want to ask you the same question that I asked Danielle. Is how do you see the impact of the funding in your day-to-day experience at school?
In my day-to-day experience here at Norristown, one of the things that Daniele touched based on was the glaze.
Right.
I guess the resources that some of the departments of the school have, such as the art department. I've heard that sometimes they can't participate in certain like let's say competitions because the quality of their stuff isn't as good, so they won't be able to compare to other schools, or having to be tight on how much supplies they use, so they have to make sure that it lasts them long enough because glazes are very expensive. And also like good quality brushes as well, it's also really expensive. And even at that, like when I did go to Upper Marion with Daniele, and even like some of the uniforms are very outdated, or even at that, like some of the stuff we had to practice in, like it was just really outdated and like kind of falling apart. And another thing here as well would be like textbooks, like newer textbooks that are updated and things like that. And also like we have Chromebooks, and I used to have like a MacBook, and like I didn't know what a Chromebook was until I came to Norristown. And like sometimes my Chromebook will shut down while I'm doing my work, and my work will be gone, some of it, and it's like a little frustrating to know that because I could maybe get a better computer, but I don't have like the resources in order to get a better computer to complete my assignments.
Something like that was happening right now for you to
Um,
try. Is Thaddeus
could you
here?
wait? Yes, could you wait just a minute?
Yeah. So this is very interesting. This is real life,
Yeah,
Derek,
this is
right?
live.
Thaddeus.
Hey guys.
Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us, Thaddeus. I
Uh,
guess I'll ask you the question too, and then Emma, you can jump in and then ask yours. But
Totally.
what I've
Yeah.
asked, Yasina and Danielle, how do you see? I mean, I know you're more of the advocate here and advocating for equal funding in schools in Pennsylvania. Like, so what are you seeing or what are you hearing about the experiences of the lack of funding in the day-to-day experiences of the students in school?
it's horrible. To be quite frank with you.
Yeah,
A,
I like
a,
you to be
a,
frank, to be honest with you.
a lot of students have expressed how they go to other schools and they see the the different things that other schools have, and then they come back to their school and they're like, wow, like, why can't we do something like this? Or why do I have to pay $200 or $500 for a trip when a group of students can get sponsored to go to this place or that place? And I think that it's really just disheartening, really, to hear that students are going through that. In the current trial, there's a school who was a part of the trial where there's one bathroom for 75 kindergartners. 5 and 6 year olds shouldn't have to go through that. Like they shouldn't. Humans, period, shouldn't have to go through that. So just the comparisons is something that I felt, but also things that I hear, students talk about. They go to different football games and see different schools and see their like elaborate stadiums and see different things. It's just like, wow, you go back to your school and you question, like, how come I'm not getting the same resources?
Yeah. So I would like to ask the three of you the same question that I asked Danielle, and we were waiting for you guys. There are some things that money fixes, right? But there are some things that probably school districts can do without more money. So I will ask with Daniele, and then we'll go with Jesenia, and then that first women. What things we can or a school district can improve without receiving more money?
I think definitely hiring more staff of color and first generation, because as a girl and being first gen, I didn't really know what to expect for my college process. I actually had to go to a mentor, and I still go with my mentor to a nonprofit organization out of my school. And also, I never really felt close to my counselor until this year, which is a whole different counselor. Jesenia and I were in the same sophomore class um, a year ago or two. Um, and our counselors told us that they weren't going to need us until senior year, but I didn't really know how to take that, because it's like, you're my counselor, you should be able to guide me all throughout high school, not just my senior year because I'm going to college. And I just never really reached out until this year. But yeah, I was ahead of the game because my mentor and the program that I go to, it's actually called Tecate. It's a nonprofit organization, like I said, in Tecate, in Norristown, sorry. And they've helped me a lot. They made my life a lot easier, and I understand, and I feel a lot more confident going to college. But I also have friends that can't go because they have work and stuff on the days we meet up, but they're like, they don't really know what to expect, or they still have a lot to go through and stuff like that. And I still try to help them out, but I feel like if we're in a place 5 out of the 7 days in the week, half of our day is there, and we grow and we're like with the same people every single day, we should be able to have the resources and the staff to give us that guidance, and not just have like, because we're not like everybody else, honestly. If we're being real, we're not just like every other person. We need the guidance, because like my parents are immigrants, they have no clue what it is to go through it. So, and I'm just like, I can't even reach out to my counselor because they don't know. And I just more staff, and I think first generation of color.
What do you think, that Jesenia?
I agree with Danielle. Me and Thaddeus, like, we had like a meeting with like a couple other girls the other day, and we were also talking about like the diversity in staff. I think that's also really well needed. Like here in Norristown, Thaddeus pointed out how there's only like 2 African American teachers. I have never seen a Mexican, a Latin teacher in my life. And that's kind of really disheartening. I wish that there would be more people, teachers that I could see and relate to. And also like just creating a really nice atmosphere of community in school. I feel like that's the one thing here in Norristown that they very much embrace, is the community aspect. They accept people from wherever they come from. I remember my first day, I met a couple people and they were like really nice and kind. And I wish that more schools could emphasize that idea of family. That's something that money cannot buy. Money cannot make you accept a group of people. Money cannot make you do this or that. It's like morals and values. And I wish that schools would emphasize more on creating a more accepting community of different races, different ethnicities, and make them feel welcomed into their school. I feel like that's really important in order for you to feel comfortable going to school. Here in Norristown, I know that there's like a dance group, and like they do different kinds of dances, and I think that's actually really nice that the school offers that. Different kids can participate in that. I wish that schools had more programs that were more designated to include different cultures together instead of having them separate. Like, oh, like there's just one Spanish class, one French class. Like, kind of like you kind of create that separation between the two. Although they're different cultures, yes, but being more inclusive, I think that would be something really great. Me and Danielle have dealt with feeling like we're outsiders simply because we are Mexican. And I feel like that's really difficult because we should be proud of who we are. And if our school is not making us feel proud, then how do we feel comfortable going to school?
Yeah, I can definitely say I definitely, it took me a while to be like, yeah, I'm Mexican, I'm proud, just because of the lack of diversity there was. Yeah.
What about
I
you,
was,
Todd?
oh yeah, I would say for me it's the curriculum, easily. The stuff that our students are learning, especially when it comes to history. I've seen that's the subject that's really the most really under attack, because you hear this whole critical race thing, and not, I told people on numerous occasions, like, critical race theory is history. Like, people are separating it, making it something separate from what it is. America was founded on racist principles, and that's history. You can't argue with history. And there are people who are trying to erase or trying to cover up history to, in a way, protect this false reality of white innocence. Because they don't want to be looked at as the bad guy. So it's like, let's not talk about slavery. Let's not talk about anything that we as Americans have done wrong. Let's show them the good parts. Let's show them and make this false illusion or this smoke screen that racism doesn't exist, sexism doesn't exist, all these other isms don't exist, and make it seem like everything is right with the world. But unless you're exposed to inequity, unless you're exposed to wrong, you really don't know what is right and what to fight for. That's why we're all here as students, as advocates. We're fighting for what is right, but we wouldn't know what's right unless we learned about what was wrong. So in the curriculum, it's essential that the students know America's brutal history, that you learn about slavery, that you learn about racism, that you learn about these different things, and you communicate to these students, this does exist, and it's continuing to go on. And it's our job to make sure that, number one, that we're not caught up in that we're not racist ourselves, that we address our own biases that we have within our own self. But then also, when we see it in our schools, when we see it in the workplace, when we see it out in public, that we can address it. And that all really starts by making sure that the curriculum is one that is accurate, but also you have to include more people of color in the curriculum too. Because, like I told you, Emma, with our interview a few months ago, you can't just learn or think that the only people who contributed anything to society were European white men. That's just false. Like, our students need to learn that people who look like them contributed to the areas of math, science, theater, history, that they contributed to things. So once they see themselves in their education, students will be more motivated to take it more seriously, because I see myself. A lot of students don't see themselves in their education, which is why they're not taking it as serious as a lot of people may want them to. So the curriculum has to number one, not cover up the brutal fact that America was a racist nation and that racism is still perpetuated today in multiple forms. And number two, it needs to show our students more people of color that contributed to their education. So
thank you, guys.
Thank you. Daniela, you talked about earlier about counselors, and I know I've had a couple conversations with some students privately about how there's basically there aren't any, or maybe one. So can you guys speak to like what's the environment in your school? How many counselors do you have per student? Let's say, if you know that, or it's again like when we spoke about how you have to wait till senior year to see your counselor. How is that something that can help guide students if you're not going to see them until the last year? So can you talk about that, please? Like the counselor piece. Do you feel obviously that we should be hiring more counselors, but also counselors of color?
Yes. I know each grade has two counselors, and it's divided between last names. So it's like the first half, it's like A through K, like that's one counselor, and then like everything after that to Z is another. Um, but the reason I'm saying like we need more counselors is because, well, it's the counselor, the first gen, like there's like it's like different things. I know my counselors really lacked, and I know previous like people that had the counselor that I had, they were like, she's terrible. She only looks out for her people. Keep in mind, she was an African American counselor, so I thought like when I first saw her, I was like, maybe I can relate to her, maybe I can counter her. But she was the one that really pointed
What if we
out.
face it towards the window?
Because it's
She was
closer.
really the one that pointed out, like, you won't really need us until your senior year. Like, we'll be here, but like, we can't really that's not much we can do throughout high school, and so I never really reached out, but I think it's that they said, and we do need more counselors just because there's only so many students that one person can take care of. You know what I mean? So they're gonna obviously pay attention to the ones that are getting in trouble or failing classes or skipping classes, because those are the ones that look like they need the most help. But sometimes it's just the lack of motivation that they have, and you can't really do much about that, because it's a student. Like, a student is responsible for their education at the end of the day, but then there's the students that actually need the help and the guidance and the assistance because they're trying to keep an A in their class. But those are the students that the counselors don't reach out to because there's like priorities, I guess we can say. But then there's another counselor towards the end of the alphabet, and I've heard she's like an amazing counselor, but I don't know. Like, she genuinely wants to make her students like be happy, but at the same time, I don't know how, because it was Jesenia's counselor. Yesenia never reached out to her counselor, but then my other friends had the same counselor as her, and they actually benefited from her, but they're white again. So I don't know if that has to do with anything, but I feel like if we had more counselors that are first gen color and just more counselors overall, a lot of more students would benefit, and I feel like a lot more students would want to focus in school because they would have someone actually caring about them, because at the end of the day, we don't know what they're going through at home. So if they're like, a lot of the students don't go to class because they're like, my mom or dad don't care, or what's the point of going to class if I don't even want to go to college? Sometimes we just need someone to actually care about us in a place that we're in all the time, not just the principal, go to class because you need to go, or you're gonna, I'm sorry, have the tension, and a counselor is a big part because at the end of the day, they're the ones that have control of what your transcript looks like. So that, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesenia or Thaddeus?
Do you think you could
repeat? Oh, go ahead.
Do you think you could repeat what you asked? There were some, we couldn't hear you. There were some difficulties.
Sure. I was just when Daniela talked up earlier about how the lack of counselors, or how she couldn't see her counselor until she got into the senior year. I was just wondering, what's that experience like for you, you guys, and that is, what are you hearing about as far as students wanting more counselors throughout their 4-year of high school, obviously, and not having enough counselors to help all the students? Like, what are you hearing about that with that experience?
Yeah. So what I see here on our side, I definitely think there's a need for. We can even just go on the mental health side of things. Like there's a need for more therapists, just people who can simply talk to the students. Because like Danielle hit the nail right on the head. Like there are students who may not go to class or may not do their work, but they're not doing that just because they don't want to do it. There's some things that they're going through at home, or there's some actual trauma that they're dealing with, but that they don't know how to express fully. So having more therapists and having, because guidance counselors, they have, like, especially when you're in high school, they kind of have like a set job. But to have therapists who kind of take the weight off the guidance counselors in terms of the way that they have to handle the mental health side of things, where it's like guidance counselors, they can specialize in make sure you have the right classes and kind of putting you in the right direction for your future. And then the therapist can come in and help you deal with the mental health side of trauma and different things that you're going through throughout the school year. So a student can come into the school knowing that they're cared for fully, because there's a lot of students who have a lot of things going on in their mental health, and maybe sometimes the counselors are overwhelmed with the other side of things that they might not have the time to tend to both things, because it can be very overwhelming. You have hundreds and hundreds of students. My schedule is this. I don't like this class. Can you make sure I get into this school? Can you do this? Can you do that? So I think adding more therapists to schools would definitely help, which is why we're continuing to fight for educational equity, because the more resources that we have, the more mental health therapists we can put in our schools to help our students deal with whatever they're going through.
What about you, Jesenia? What do you think about
Um,
counselors?
I completely agree with Thaddeus about the therapist part. I think us students really do need a lot of help, especially during high school. We go through a lot of struggles, whether that be at home or at school. But we're struggling with something, and we need the help, all the help that we can get, because we're still growing up, and like we still need help. We're still kids at the end
Yeah.
of the day. And with the guidance counselor, I can speak really highly about my guidance counselor. She's been great since I first transitioned here to Norristown, when I was struggling through the whole college process, because I had no idea. My parents, I couldn't go to them because they had never done the college process. And I went to her and she said, "Of course, I'll set up a day and time and we can Zoom." And we did. We sat there for an hour and a half. She asked me about what I wanted to do with my future. She recommended me some stuff and she helped me through the process, which I think is what students just need, for someone to care about you, for someone to care about your future. And that's what guidance counselors do. They aid you from your freshman year up until you're going off to college. They're like your parent at school, per se. They watch
Mm.
over you. They're the ones who have your grades, who set up everything for you. And I think it's sad that me and Daniela did have an experience where our guidance counselors didn't really put much thought into us. It did feel like I always had this thing that I never liked guidance counselors for that reason, because I felt like they never helped. On the contrary, they always kind of put us down and made us
Mhm.
feel like we weren't worth watching over. And when I came here and I met my guidance counselor, she was so sweet. She even gave me a tour of the school, and that made me feel like I do have someone to go to here. I actually have someone that cares about me. And we have like a good relationship, per se. And I think that's one of the best things in school, when you know that you have a teacher, your guidance counselor, that you
Mhm.
can go to and trust regarding any matter. And I wish that that was more heavily emphasized on, because they're not only the people that hold your grades, but they're supposed to be watching over you from your freshman year up until you go off to college.
Mm, mm. Well, I want to remind people who are joining us on the Facebook Live that this is a platform, a collaborative platform between NBC 10, Broken Philly, and Dos Puntos podcast. And we are with Daniela Castañeda Ángel, Jesenia Zavala Jimenez, and with Tadeusz Pay. The three of them are advocates for education. And we are doing this because there is there is a in demanding in progress to the legislators in Pennsylvania, because the education in Pennsylvania is one of the most inequity educations in this country. Um, I don't know what do you think, guys, but sometimes I think that people of color, we sometimes we feel like we don't deserve some things, or we shouldn't say some things because like we are not as important as other people. So have you feeling that way? Do you feel like sometimes we don't, I don't know, we don't deserve going through post-secondary education, or do you feel that? Have you ever felt that way? And I will start with Tarius. Can you hear, guys? Can you hear us?
Can you repeat
Daniele,
yourself?
yeah. Do you think, guys, that we as people of color sometimes we feel like we don't deserve some things that are right, or that we shouldn't be asking something, or asking for legislator, or policymakers, of politicians to make education as a right? So I go with Daniela first. Daniele.
Um, so for me, it was very hard. I'm not gonna lie, to not just want to go to college, but find a career path. But also because I never felt like I was in the right place. Like I was always that shy girl that would just talk to her friend next to her, would not raise her hand. I would stutter and I would turn red when I would talk. Um, just because the people, like the faces of like the people around me, just didn't feel like I didn't feel comfortable enough to talk. Um, and I also think it has to do a lot with my teachers. Um, I remember like the one class that I do know I was always very uncomfortable with was my English class
Mhm.
sophomore year. I did not like being there alone. I absolutely hated it. I was the only, like, it was me and this other girl and Jesenia before she had to move um in the room, but I was only Hispanic, and I had always been really the only Hispanic in all of my classes, and I still am to this day, I believe. But now I have a voice. I create myself to have a voice, and I've noticed that the same people I've had in my sophomore classes, I have some of them now. And when like I talk and I just keep talking and talking, um, they just kind of like stare at me, and it also feels like the teacher just kind of gets annoyed. This one teacher, I'm not gonna say her name, I'm not gonna say the subject, but one teacher just kind of like, oh, okay, and always decides to choose on the girl sitting next to me. And I'm like, okay. So like now I'm kind of like talking less, but I'm like, I'm not gonna put myself in that situation again because I have the right to speak.
Oh, that was the bell.
Oh, oh, I wasn't sure what that was. I was like, oh, did I do
No. That was
Time.
something? I was like, damn.
yeah. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
It's okay. But yeah, and I just now I feel like because I've grown, I realized a lot of things for the past year with the pandemic. It gives me more of a reason and a more of a want to go to college, study, and get a degree. Just to prove that like first generation students can do it. Girls can do it. Girls that are Hispanic or just colored, we can do it. We can go that way no matter like how uncomfortable or how out of place you be. You have to make yourself the spotlight to put yourself out there and get an opportunity and prove them all wrong, because at the end of the day, you're just like everybody else, and sometimes you're even smarter, I'm not gonna lie, because you have more of an experience, you're more open-minded. And I just now I'm really, really, really grateful for the teachers I have, especially my culinary teacher and my government teacher, just because I can literally go up to them and talk to them when I have an issue, like, and I just have never done that. But It's just the teacher itself and just how welcoming and how open they are. And I'm not gonna say I feel like the pandemic made them realize a lot of things to a lot of the staff now.
Thank you, Daniela. What about you, Jesenia and Tad? Do you have you ever felt that being part of the community of color, that like you don't deserve some things just because you don't think about it?
You can go.
For me, I've always been outspoken. I'm proud to be Mexican. I wear that like I every single day, no matter what. Ever since I was young, I've always taken pride in who I am. That's something that my parents have heavily emphasized on me. Be proud of who you are, no matter where you go. Um, but there was an instance when I did move my sophomore year where my identity really got like broken. I didn't really, I felt so out of place when I moved to a new school. This is before I moved here to Norristown. Um, and I had never felt like an outsider than I did the 2 months there before the pandemic hit. And I feel like that really shifted my perspective on a lot of things. And even now, I remember that experience and I take it and I'm like, I will never, ever want anyone else to feel the way I did. To feel like my identity is like not valuable, is not important. I am not seen. I am not heard. I did not like feeling that way. And I really took it to heart because it did take a toll on my mental health. But now when Danielle, like, because I'm here because of Danielle, she offered this opportunity through Emma. And I'm like, I have a voice now. I take that experience and I'm like, it did make me stronger because now I am more outspoken about who I am, what I believe in. Before I was always outspoken, but I always wanted to keep the peace. I didn't want to like make a huge scene. I just didn't like that. I didn't like conflict. And now I'm like, what's a little bit of conflict? What's a little bit of writing? What's a little bit of starting something? There's nothing wrong with that. And I feel like being Mexican has really pushed me because I'm like, I have younger siblings as well. And I'm like, if I can create a better place for them, I will do that. And going to college was also something that my parents heavily emphasized on me. They were like, we're giving you the resources and the stepping stones to push you to college. What you decide to do with your life after that is all up to you. We have given you everything that we have possibly can, in like your whole life. But what you decide to do now is up to you. What changes you want to make in this world is up to you. And like I want to go into interior design, and I feel like through that my dad said like you can always donate to charities. It's more faster in a way, and he was like that's what we do too. We donate to charities, we help people out, and I'm like that's what I want to do if I can do that. And even now with the whole education and equity, I'm like if I can also start this now, I will do that, and I will continue to do that until I see that there are changes. I actually had no idea that we were so underfunded. And when I did, it really sparked something in me because I'm like, this is not fair. It's not fair. It upsets me that I went so much of my life receiving.
Sorry, it's another bell.
Yeah.
Guys.
We are at school.
Yeah.
We are at school.
We are at school. That I went so much through my life receiving so many things, but there was other students out there who didn't have the same resources I did. Education is a luxury that we take advantage of. Many kids are not fortunate enough to go to school to have an education, and I feel like it's kind of like we have to take advantage that we can. We have to speak up and help those who don't have the opportunity to go to college, who don't have the opportunity to go to school or finish education because they have to help their parents. Like I said, education is a luxury, and it's really sad that some people don't take advantage of it enough and just kind of slide by through the rest of their life, kind of like, whatever, I got a diploma, so it's easy for me. I can get a job anywhere I want, and that's really upsetting because there are so many people who would love to go to school, to learn, to read, to write, to do simple things. And I feel like education is super important, even though it is demanding. It's grueling sometimes academically. Yes, it is. I will not lie. But I take it as that it's helping me. I'm doing this for myself, for my future. And I think that's something really important.
Yeah. My heart is like jumping. Honestly, like when I hear Danielle and Jesenia talk, like they're going to change the world. So everybody watching, like remember these two faces, remember these names. they're going to change the world. I'm not just saying that just to say that. I'm saying that because like I've gotten to know them over these past weeks and months, and I really have seen that they have a sincerity about them that's real, that's genuine, and they actually want to make a difference. So like they're going to make an incredible impact and inspire so many people, like beyond their wildest dreams, honestly. So to answer your question, Emma, no, I've never felt like I don't deserve things and I need to, take the back seat. No, because especially as a Black male in America, you've been, treated as if you were second class. You've been treated as if you were just a boy or just this or just that. But understanding that we're all made in the image of God, and I deserve the same opportunity as the person next to me, whether we're Black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. I'm just as deserving as the next person. Just having, as Dr. King put it, a deep sense of your own somebodyness within myself has definitely helped me to really understand that, like, we talk about it all the time, me, Daniela, Jesenia, and Emma, like, don't settle. Like, why would I settle for this? Because I think this is my ceiling. My ceiling is whatever. My ceiling is whatever I think it is. Like, the only limitation that I have to my future and my possibilities is my own thinking.
Right.
So if I think I deserve second, that's what I'm going to get. But if I think and if I believe, why not? Why not try to be the best at what I do? Why not try to achieve high? Why not try to aim high? Like, if you shoot for the moon, the best thing, you're going to land on a star, right? So just aiming high and understanding that you do deserve this, because those who came before me, they fought and they labored so I could be in this position. So I in the way what I'm doing, I pay tribute to them by continuing to aim high.
Thank you. That was well said. Well, that's it, guys. The time flies by fast when we're having, a great conversation and real deep conversations. So I'd like to thank all the guests for joining us and thank our Facebook Live viewers also. And hopefully you join us next month on our next Blended Views. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.
See you guys.